In this video, we're going to continue our discussion on the movement of materials like the proteins made in the ER towards the Golgi apparatus. So, in between the endoplasmic reticulum and the Golgi apparatus is a series or an intermediate container we call as ERGIC, or the ER Golgi intermediate compartment. Okay, so that is a temporary compartment that brings the materials made from the ER to what we see here as the cisterna of the Golgi complex. So in this illustration, we can see that the Golgi complex is a stack of membranous organelles, and the one that's nearest to the endoplasmic reticulum is known as the cis portion, and the one farthest from it is known as the trans portion. Then we have the medial portion in the center. So again, the word cisterna here stands for the lumen, or the inside of this membranous compartment. So this is an electron micrograph of the Golgi complex. So you can see here it's really true to the illustration shown a while ago. So seen here is the CGN, or the cis Golgi network, and the TGN, or the trans Golgi network. So as we've seen before, the CGN is the one nearest to the ER, while the TGN is nearest towards the plasma membrane. And the movement of materials in the Golgi complex is usually from the CGN to the TGN, of course, with some exceptions. So the Golgi complex is also known as the packaging center of the cell, because whatever was made in the ER is sent to the CGN and then is going to be packaged or processed some more in the Golgi apparatus, and then once it's packaged properly, it's now ready to be shipped to the other parts of the cell, starting from the TGN. So here's another illustration of the Golgi apparatus. Here is a top view. I think this is a top view of the Golgi apparatus. So notice how it's circular in shape. The membranes are flattened, viewed from the side, but viewed from the top or from the bottom, they are circular in shape. And notice on the sides, if you can see here, there are these buds that are starting to form vesicles from the central disc that we see here, the central domain. Now, the Golgi complex, as we have learned, is made up of three main parts. We have the CGN, we have the medial, and then we have the TGN. There are actually differences with regards to the properties of the contents of those particular portions of the Golgi complex. So here, for example, in this portion, I believe this one is the CGN. When you try to stain them with chemicals, as compared to the medial and as compared to the trans, the chemicals would stain, different chemicals would stain these different portions. Meaning to say that there are really differences on the chemicals and the properties that are present in these different regions of the Golgi complex. So that's very important to realize that although the Golgi complex is one, there are differences from the cis to the medial to the trans portion. So this is really a proof that there are some processes involved that change the original cargo from the ER to the cis portion. So there's a processing so that when it reaches the medial portion, it's sort of different and when it reaches the trans portion, it's also now more different from its original form. So in fact, this is one process that happens in the Golgi complex. Similar to the ER, there's also glycosylation. So remember in the ER, it was important to put these oligosaccharides on the proteins that are made, the nascent polypeptides, because if you can remember, there were those 3 glucose molecules that's used in the quality control of the proper folding of these nascent polypeptides. Now, in the Golgi complex, as we see here, we're not going to be detailing this anymore. There are also some changes. So, remember, our protein left the ER with all of the glucose removed, and we only have here the mannoses, the blue triangles left. That's step number 1. Then there are other enzymes here in the Golgi apparatus. In the cis portion, we have the alpha manosidase. In the medial portion, we have the GLC-NAC transferase 2 at 1. And then we have these other enzymes. And then in the trans portion, we have the fucosyl and galactosyl transferases and sialic transferase in the trans portion of the Golgi complex. So these enzymes facilitate the glycosylation or the transformation of the nascent polypeptide from the ER to the cis until it reaches the trans portion. So notice here, the final product includes a fucose, and many of the mannoses are removed, and then new sugars like galactose and sialic acid are added here on the top. Okay? So, if you can remember your red blood cell and the carbohydrates on the surface as a basis of the ABO system of classification, the fucose and all of these oligosaccharides are very important. So, it so happens that they are added during the processing here in the Golgi complex. And then there are also some models on how materials move through the Golgi complex. So the first model is called the vesicular transport model, meaning to say that as materials from the cis need to move to the medial and then to the trans, they do so because they are placed inside vesicles, as we see here, and the vesicles are the one that move from the cis to the trans portion of the Golgi complex. So that's the vesicular transport model. So this entails that in a cell, the Golgi complex is always present. Okay? Because the main parts here are always present, and it's only the vesicles that move in between them. Okay? Which is the opposite in the second model, the cisternal maturation model. In the cisternal maturation model, the stack that we see here in the cis will mature, and as it matures, it moves towards the medial portion, and new stacks are going to be added from the ER here on the cis. So, as we follow the maturation into the medial and then into the trans, where it's becoming the most mature, okay, this is where the mature products are sent to the other parts of the cell, as we see here. And the enzymes, as we saw in the glycosylation processes, are resident proteins, meaning to say they're not supposed to leave the portions where they are. So, if, for example, if there was an enzyme that's supposed to be only in the cis portion of the Golgi complex, as the cistern matures, it moves up, and there's a need to return it back to the cis portion of the Golgi complex, and thus that's the work of the vesicles here. So the vesicles are not the ones carrying the materials, but they are sort of returning the enzymes back to where they are supposed to be. And in this cisternal maturation model, we can expect that some cells will completely have the lack of Golgi apparatuses. especially if there are no new products made in the ER, right? Because this is going to mature and eventually it's going to be consumed or lost, okay, as it matures. So here are some proofs. So first we have the vesicular stomatitis virus proteins. So remember that virus, it's an anterograde cargo molecule. So meaning to say, it's supposed to be moving forwards, no, from the ER to the trans portion of the Golgi complex. And notice here, all of these proteins are only found in the Golgi stacks, and none of them, as shown in this arrow here, are found in the vesicles. And then here we have manosidase 2, a resident molecule, a resident enzyme in the medial cisternal portion of the Golgi complex. Notice how it's present here in this vesicle. So the question now is this, and I will not answer this one for you right now. Which model is supported by these observations? Is it the vesicular transport model or the cisternal maturation model? And then we talk about the vesicles, the formation of the vesicles. In the first video, we learned that vesicles form because there are certain coating proteins that need to coat the portions of the Golgi complex or the ER so that the vesicles will start to bud. So you can see here in the vesicles, they are all coated by this dark material. Okay, so here we have a vesicle coated with the COP2 coating. And here we have a vesicle that's coated with the COP1 protein. So your question might be this: how do they differ? They look similarly under the microscope. So in fact, there's a difference between the COP2 and the COP1 coating. So again, this is the general view from the ER. And here we have some vesicles that are moving towards the Golgi complex. And then here we have some vesicles that are moving from the trans-Golgi network towards the other parts of the cell. Okay? So, important to remember the directions in movement. If it's from the ER towards the Golgi and towards the outside of the cell, that's an anterograde motion or direction. And if it's from the outside of the cell going to the Golgi and then going to the ER, that's a retrograde or the reverse direction. So let's take a closer look here. So notice that the COP2 coating proteins only coat vesicles that are moving in an anterograde motion or direction from the ER to the ergic. Okay? And then towards the cis-Golgi network. So that's where the COP2 coating is found. Okay, so that's very specific. Notice here that the COP1 coating can only be found in vesicles that are moving in a retrograde motion from the cis-Golgi network to the endoplasmic reticulum. So that's also very specific. You cannot see them mix up. Okay, there's no mixing of COP1 and COP2 here. And then if we move up here, we can still see the COP1s. Okay, from the trans-Golgi network to the medial Golgi network to the cis-Golgi network. The movement of the vesicles here are all dictated by the coating COP1 protein. And if we move up here, we can see that the movement from the TGN or the trans-Golgi network towards the other parts of the cell, the vesicles are coated with clathrin. Okay, so this is an anterograde motion from the TGN to the other parts of the cell. So clathrin may be found here. And in the secretory granules, there are no coatings necessary, as you see here. Okay, so here's a detailed mechanism of COP2 and how it can cause the bulging of this membrane here. So as you can see, first the receptors of the cargo, which are the diamond shaped and the circular shaped proteins here, attached to those proteins. So take note, the resident protein, the purple ones, are not interacting with the receptors. So meaning to say they stay where they're supposed to be. So only the soluble protein cargo here interact with the cargo receptors. And the cargo receptors move close to each other. And then eventually, other proteins like this SAR1 protein and then the COP2 proteins will move on top of the receptors as we see here. And the result is the bulging of this membrane. Okay, and then eventually this is going to pinch off and you now have a COP2 coated vesicle with only the soluble proteins present. Take note, there are no purple resident proteins here. Okay, so that's how the formation of vesicles in the case of COP2 coated vesicles happen. So here's a more detailed view of that. And here we can see the different shapes of the different coating proteins. So clathrine has this triskelion shape. Okay. COP2 has this sort of linear shape. And it has its own subunits, as you can see here. And then COP1 also has the triskelion shape. But you can see how the beta subunits are separated from each other. And here are the vesicles that they coat. Okay, they have certain arrangements on the surface of the vesicles. And here we have a COP2, a 3D model of the COP2 coating protein coating a vesicle.